Hey, here's the breakdown for the CSS battle for the 24th of May 2026. So got first place with this solution, only by one character though. Most of the other solutions are pretty similar, but this basically combines a few tricks together. So yeah, let me walk you through that. When I first look at this, I see this circular shape over here, like this ring, and then another one that's the same size but only half of it is shown, and then the little piece over here in the middle that's actually filled in. So my initial thought when I see this is to use a radial gradient. So, and then I usually just start that off by doing that on the HTML element first. So we do a radial gradient over here. We set the inner color to that, and then make the size maybe 80 pixels. That for the next color. Do 100 for the. Do a 0 for that hard color stop, and you've kind of got your shape over there, something like that probably. And then you would just, so this value is the background position. If you just do 1, that's the background X position. So we can basically mess with this value to get it where we want it to go. What are we, 65? Okay, there we go. So that's the first shape. And then the second one, so targeting the body now, it can be a similar thing, except, so let's just do that as is first. So if we were to do the body, we'd have to do this at left, and then we have that half circle shape, and then we'd have to increase this value to position it where we want it to go, or like there. Okay, that works, but then the issue is because this color in the inside, this dark blue color, is like kind of overlapping the rest of the page, like the HTML element behind it, so you don't actually see that the color underneath it because it's being layered over. So a trick to deal with this is, instead of putting this blue color, we make this transparent. So we make that and that transparent. Perfect. And then we need an element over here that's also going to have the same gradient. This basically just needs a background of this kind of orange color and then some height. And then we do have to put a character over here to prevent margin collapsing. That's how we're going to do it this time. And then we can give it some margin. So 0, 150 or something. This is kind of the shape that we want to go for. So if we make the height maybe 200, that's better. Yeah, that's kind of our shape. So let's see how we can refactor this, because looking at it, we basically have, this is the same thing. We've got this background radial gradient on the HTML, the body one has the same one, and the P tag can basically also have more or less the same rule applied. You can see it's like, it's going to have those circles there, but if we were to, for you to just use like a solid color stop in this gradient, we would get what we want there. So let's take a look at this. So I'm going to take the paragraph out first, so we can just deal with the body element first. We've got the HTML sorted, so let's do that. So these values are all going to be very similar, except so the first circle we want fully like this, and the second one we want at the right. So one way to do this is to do like add a variable over here, so we can have nothing here for the HTML, and then for the HTML element, and on the body you could do something like, let's just see if we take this out completely and have both rules applied. There in the body we could make this at left, and we have our shape. So that's one way to do it. A better way to do it, instead of using a variable, is to use the font trick. So what we do over here basically is we use font as a variable. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that, but basically we use any like hard stat, like any value, any value like CSS unit that is affected by font size, we can use for this. So let's just see. So on HTML, if we put this at 25ch, let me just make sure this is in the right place. Display none. Cool. So at 25ch, we're actually at the right position again. If you were to put that at 0, and here we see we have it's equivalent of doing at left, basically. This is the X value, by the way. We're omitting the Y value by default. So what we can do here is make this a very high value, like 25ch, and that gets us in the right position. And then on the body element, we just make the font 0. And then that basically moves it over to where we need it to be. So if you were to make this like 20 pixels, then you can see how that would shift around. So yeah, we basically use font as a variable over here. So that's the first step. We can then use that trick to get a half circle in HTML. The second thing we need to clean up, though, is these dark blue colors are overriding or overlapping the background on the next element. So one way to do that is to take these out and make these transparent. So I'm just doing the 4-digit code for transparent, black, so 3 zeros and then 1 0 for the alpha value. So that's transparent. And then you can put the background color that you're missing here as the actual background color. Remember, this is the background shorthand. So we have a background image, background position over here, and then the background color that fills in the remaining space. So if we do that, I'll just put this in a variable for now. If we do that, then we can go font size 0 over here on the HTML element and change the X value something to where we want it to be. So like, let's see, 20 pixels not right. Basically, yeah, we want to do something like this where you can shift the element over to the right. I think we're at 28, 27, something like that. That looks right. Okay, so yeah, we've got HTML and body sorted, and now we need that paragraph element to fill in this little gap in the middle. So I'll go with paragraph because it's the shortest element that has default display of block. That's why I pick it. So we're going to go, just to see what's going on here, we're going to give it an outline and give it some height. And then we can kind of see what's going on. And we definitely want some margin to position the left and right. So we want something like this, probably like that, right? And then you can position it top and bottom like that. See, we're getting this weird behavior over there. It's because the margin is actually pushing up from the paragraph onto the body. So we need to prevent the margin collapsing. And we can do that with a little dot character. Any character here will work. A dot is usually fine, but I usually put a non-breaking space character because that has no diff at all. It's like a space, like a normal space character, but it prevents margin collapsing. That's all you need to know for this, really. And that'll allow us to position this without affecting the body element, just like that. So close to getting our shape here, but we probably have to play with some other like values over here. If I were to go and change the X value on the body, we'd be able to position this right where we want it. So if we do, let's just make sure our outline isn't overlapping anywhere, and then if we do not winning. Let's see what's going on here. If we take this off, X 0, so what is it, 127 pixels. If we make it 110, yeah, sorry, I'm fumbling a bit on this one, but there you can see we're getting where we need to go. So these values need to be tweaked just a little bit to get where we want them. Something like that. That's close to what we want. Let me just take the outline out here. Okay, we want to increase this so we don't have overlap. And then, let's see, what do we do next over here? Let's take a peek. I'm just going to paste this code up here, the final code. if it'll let me. Okay, we just uncomment that. Right. Okay. Cool. So let's just see what we're missing over here. So I'm going to get this first part, the first rule right. So we got here background, got this, that's all good, 130 pixels. And we've got our variable here to change the position. And then here we go. So this came, I think, was a bit of a lucky accident that I found out that this worked. But I saw that whenever I see that we're using font to change another value, like in this case, we're using font to change the position of the gradient on the background. Because I'm already using this font rule, I know that I can make good use of it in more than one way. So instead of just using font size, which we're doing over here, we can now add in line height as well. And we've got two variables. So if we give this paragraph some kind of element in it, and then it'll have inherent height, right? And we can take out this height property. Okay, and if we give it a very high font size, you can see that's going to, like I'm doing it in inches now, because that's, you'll already see what's going on. But yeah, that's going to increase the height massively. So if I'll put an outline around here so you can see the size of this thing. Okay, yeah, so you can see our line, like the line height is getting really large over here. Obviously, because we have 0 as our font size, the line height scales relative to that, so it can only get so big. I was running into an issue with this, so I just, instead of making it 0, I made it like a really small value, 0.01q, which is about as small as you can get. Unfortunately, you can't do percent for font size. There's a limit with that. I think it won't go below 50% or something by default. Like 50 will do the same thing as 40. If you go higher than that, you'll see a difference. But you can't, if you go lower than 50, you won't notice it. So we've got to use an absolute value like Q over here. So if we do font size as 0.1q, because we want that to be a small value, and then we increase the line height a lot, then we can kind of start getting what we want. So you can see here that the height of the paragraph is increasing. So we change that top margin to 0. We don't need that pushed down any further. Let's see, this is kind of the rule that we had going on. Just get rid of this. Okay. Let's see what else were we missing over here. 0.1q and 1 inch. This is pretty close to what we need. Yeah, there we go. Sorted. There we go. Okay, there's our paragraph. So you see here, we've used font for two things. One is to change the position. So instead of being just centered, we're changing the position here. And then the second is to increase the height of the paragraph tag. This is quicker than taking this out, going like just 0 over here and then explicitly giving it a height. It's actually faster if you're already using the font rule. See if you can make further use of it, like I've done here. So okay, cool. Now we're basically done. I think the rest is just optimization. I'm going to replace this dot over here with a non-breaking space character. Swap this value out for PC. I know 80 pixels is 5 PC, and then these other values I think were more fiddly. I can see here that we've got the this kind of empty string, which you need to declare the font, and we can omit the last closing like comma, inverted comma, whatever you call it, if it's the last rule on the block. So we can move this paragraph rule further up over here. That's fine over there. That's the same amount of characters. We move this value to before the font, and then now we can drop that character over there. That does nicely. So we've got one less character there, and then I think these values are all just, I had to unit golf these. I don't think there's like a set one for these, as far as I know, like not a one-to-one accurate equivalent. So this was 137Q is the closest equivalent for the pixel value, and then the 65 pixels I think is that's 69Q. That's the closest equivalent. But yeah, I'll use this tool and I'll link it in the description. This is the one that I go to if I need help with this stuff. Okay, that's that. And then for the X value, I would put it in here as well. We want 127 pixels. The closest estimate is 134Q. So we use that because that's the shortest value. Now, one of these values is actually, check here, I didn't actually change this one. 137Q is not close enough to 130 pixels, so that wouldn't give us 100%. This is as close as I could get it down. Yeah, that's it. Hope that was helpful.